LGBT Stories is made up of many stories from all over the world. And in the center, at its core, is my authenticity. Me is a segment of LGBT Stories where I get to share who I am, why I am, and how I think with all of you. Those that know me personally know that I am a deep thinker and that I have a lot to share with the world. And now, that is what I am beginning to do. This is me. In the last episode of Me, I left off talking a little bit about LGBT stories. Specifically, I was sharing the fears I experienced as I was gearing up to begin launching episodes. It was just new for me to start taking a public stance on my gayness. All of my life, even well into my coming out years, being gay was always something I had been able to address or not. So the idea of LGBT stories, as it was growing bigger and bigger, I knew that I was running into a place where once this began, there isn't much turning back. In the last episode of Me, I left off talking about LGBT stories. Specifically, I was sharing the fears I experienced as I was gearing up to begin launching episodes. It was just new for me to start taking a public stance on my gayness. All of my life, even well into my coming out years, being gay was always something I had been able to address or not. So the idea of LGBT stories growing bigger and bigger, well, I knew I was running into a place where once this began, there wasn't much turning back. What I was about to embark on was going to be big, and it was going to be very public. Boy, was I right. Today, LGBT Stories has over 120,000 downloads. It streams on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Downcast, Luminary, and so many more platforms that I just really can't list them all. All over the world, on every continent, people are listening to this podcast. Who would have known that some kid from little old Pasadena, Maryland, would have been able to create something like LGBT Stories and it impact so many people's lives? Look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't always have big dreams in life. If I said I hadn't always wanted to see my name in lights or entertain masses of people. I have. When I was an early teen, I could remember that I would pretend to perform for all the posters that I had up on my walls. I would put on big concerts in my room, imagining that the celebrities in the posters were there to see me. They were people who came to see me singing my latest tracks. And as I was there pretending, every time, I would just escape into this place where I would see all their faces light up in the joy of the experience I was able to provide to them, my concert. So the desire to impact people's lives in a real positive way, man, it's always been there for me. But right now, I want to return back to my life after high school. After I graduated, I didn't really have much going on. In Pennsylvania, my mom had been building a new home, and it would be ready in about a year. So we were moving. Needless to say, I was not interested in this one bit. I just finished high school, And all I wanted to do was experience this time of life with my friends. And I had a new set of friends from my church, at that time of only 2 years. I wasn't ready to leave all that. So I thought of this great idea to ask my best friend at the time if he was cool if I moved in with him and his father. Of course, he was down, so the next thing was for us to speak to his dad. And that's what we did. Mr. Steve was okay with it, and before we knew it, I was out of my mom's house and living with my bestie, who I totally had a crush on, and his very Christian father. By now, I'm 19 years old, out of the closet, and living in Maryland, starting life as an adult. It would only be about 6 months before I found myself heading to Pennsylvania with my car packed with all of my belongings to move back in with my mom. You guessed it. Things didn't end well with my friend's very Christian father and the fact that I'm gay. Here's where things start to get a bit crazy. Little did I know that the reason Mr. Steve agreed to let me live with them was so that I can be converted back to heterosexuality. As if there was anything to convert back to. Bitch, I was born this way. I remember having a conversation with him that if I wanted to live with him and his son, that I had to take what my church called self-confrontation classes. This was a weekly class that was designed to help the student confront their sins in life and change their ways. Look, I was 19 years old. I just had a very scary coming out experience, and my ex-girlfriend had told everyone at our very right-wing church that I'm gay. Being as impressionable as I am and looking for someone to tell me that it's all going to be okay, I agreed to go to the classes. Every week, I would show up to my church in Bowie, Maryland, and attend these classes with a group of people all there looking to cure their sinful habits. I won't lie, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought this is what was going to help me in life. Meanwhile, my church, a place where I had been a regular member of, was baptized at, and where I sang on the worship team, had told me that I could no longer speak with any of the youth at the church and that I was only allowed to associate with the kids in the college level classes. They basically pushed me out as much as they could without kicking me out. And even then, no one wanted anything to do with me. I was the openly gay kid coming to church every week. If you only knew how much the stairs burn holes into me as I walk down those halls. After some time, I just couldn't take it anymore. I went home and I sat down with Mr. Steve. I told him that the self-confrontation classes are not something I was willing to do anymore. That it just didn't seem right to me. His reply, well, if you're not going to go to the classes, then you can't live here anymore. It hurt. Here was this guy I had built such a great friendship with, almost a father figure in my life, just kicking me out. About a week later, I was heading to Pennsylvania. Goodbye, Maryland. Goodbye, Faith Community Church. Goodbye, high school friends. Goodbye, everything that I knew of who I was. This would begin the next chapter of my life. From here, I go back to Pennsylvania, then to Florida, Indiana, and then Hollywood. But more of that next week. Thanks for listening. This is me. This is an Ignited Pulse production. Our host is Kevin Gertis. Our intern is Kate Mays. You can contact us at admin@ourlgbtstories.com if you would like to be on the show and tell your story, or for press and advertisement partnerships.